The purple flames of the Zephyrian war cruiser lit up the dark space around Haven's Rest colony. High Commander Veltar stood on his bridge, watching the human settlement through the main screen. His four arms moved across the control panels, with practiced ease. The battle would be over soon. Shield strength of the colony? Veltar asked his weapons officer. Down to 60%, Commander. Following standard protocol, they should surrender when it drops to 40%. Veltar nodded his scaled head. This was how war worked in the galaxy. It had been this way for 3,000 years. Every civilized species followed the same rules. You fired energy weapons from a safe distance. You calculated shield strength and weapon power. When the math said you lost, you surrendered. Clean. Simple. Civilized. The Zephyrians had conquered 47 worlds using these exact methods. Their energy cannons were the most powerful in the galaxy. Their shields could deflect any known weapon. Their computers could calculate the outcome of any battle before it started. Any response from the humans? Veltar asked. Strategic analyst Kixara looked up from her data screen. She was smaller than most Zephyrians, with bright green scales instead of the usual purple. They sent a distress signal into deep space, Commander. Standard emergency broadcast. Asking for help? Veltar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. From whom? We studied their species. They are primitive. They still use chemical rockets for some of their ships. Their weapons are mostly kinetic projectiles, ancient technology. Kixara frowned at her screen. Something bothered her about the human databases she had been studying. Their history was strange. Every other species in the galaxy had a clear pattern. They developed technology, fought a few wars, then evolved past violence. War became a science with rules and calculations. But humans were different. Their history was nothing but war. Tribe against tribe. Nation against nation. Planet against planet. They had been fighting for 10,000 years and never stopped. Even their entertainment was about fighting. Their sports were combat. Their games were war. Commander, the weapons officer reported. Colony shields are now at 45%. Good. Prepare to receive their surrender, Veltar said. He had done this so many times. The colony would surrender. The humans would accept Zephyrian rule. Maybe some would resist at first, but they would learn. Everyone learned. Commander. The communications officer's voice was sharp with surprise. Long-range sensors detect a ship approaching very fast. Veltar turned to look at the tactical display. A single red dot was moving toward them at incredible speed. What kind of ship? Unknown class, Commander. It's huge. Much larger than any recorded human vessel. Kixara's data screen lit up with new information. Commander, the ship is transmitting a message. Put it through. The bridge speakers crackled with static, then a human voice came through. It was calm, cold, and spoke with complete confidence. This is Admiral Marcus, Kane of the USS Vengeance. You have attacked human civilians. Prepare for consequences. Veltar stared at the communication panel. Where was the request for negotiation? Where was the plea for mercy? Where was the offer to surrender? Communications. Respond to their transmission. Tell them we are willing to discuss terms. No response, Commander. They have cut communication. The red dot on the tactical display was getting closer. Much closer than any civilized ship would dare approach. Veltar had 12 cruisers in his fleet. Each one was armed with the most advanced energy weapons in the galaxy. His shields could stop anything. Time to intercept? He asked. 12 minutes, Commander. Veltar activated the fleet communication system. All ships, prepare for engagement. Standard formation. This will be a simple demonstration of Zephyrian superiority, but Kixara was still studying her data screen, and what she saw made her scales turn pale. She had been reading human military history. She thought she understood what she was seeing, but it seemed impossible. Commander, she said quietly, I think we may have made an error. What kind of error? We assumed humans fight like we do, like civilized species do. But their history, Commander, they have never stopped fighting. Not for a single generation. Every human military advance has been tested in actual combat. Their weapons, their tactics, their training. It's all real. Veltar dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. They are primitive. Chemical rockets and kinetic weapons against our energy cannons. The battle computer gives us victory probability of 98%. But Commander, they're kinetic weapons. Kixara tried to explain, but Veltar was not listening. On the main screen, the human ship had dropped out of hyperspace. It was massive, larger than 3 Zephyrian cruisers combined. Its hull was dark gray, covered with what looked like weapon ports. But they were not energy weapon ports. They were something else. All ships, target the human vessel, Veltar ordered. Prepare to fire on my command. The USS Vengeance continued to approach. It made no attempt to dodge or weave. It did not request terms. It did not try to negotiate. It simply flew straight toward the Zephyrian fleet like a dark arrow. Commander, the weapons officer reported, they are not following standard engagement protocols. They are approaching to point-blank range. Then they are fools, Veltar said. Fire all weapons. 12 Zephyrian cruisers opened fire at once. Purple energy beams lanced across space, striking the human ship. The energy should have overloaded their shields instantly. Instead, the beams seemed to splash harmlessly against the hull. What? Veltar stared at the screen. How are their shields absorbing that much energy? Commander, the weapons officer said in a shaking voice. I don't think those are energy shields. The USS Vengeance had stopped approaching. It hung in space 50,000 kilometers away, close enough that Veltar could see details of its ace hull. And what he saw made no sense. The human ship was covered in armor, physical armor, thick metal plates that absorbed energy instead of deflecting it. No civilized species had used physical armor for 1,000 years. Energy shields were more efficient, but as Veltar watched, ports opened along the human ship's hull. Not energy weapon ports, something else entirely. What are they doing? He whispered. Admiral Marcus Kane sat in his command chair aboard the Mir, USS Vengeance, watching the Zephyrian fleet through his own main screen. His tactical officer, Commander Lisa Brooks, was running final calculations. 12 enemy cruisers in standard defensive formation, she reported. Energy weapons only. No kinetic defenses detected. Kane nodded. They fight like everyone else, in the galaxy. Same rules, same tactics, same weaknesses. Weapons ready, Admiral. Kane looked at the screen one more time. The aliens had attacked a human colony. 50,000 civilians were depending on him. In the old days, back on Earth, there would have been long debates about rules of engagement and diplomatic solutions. But Kane was not from the old days. He was from the new human military, the one that had learned from 10,000 years of war, the one that understood a simple truth. Sometimes you had to fight. Fire, he said quietly. The USS Vengeance fired its main guns, not energy weapons, kinetic weapons. Tungsten rods accelerated to near light speed by magnetic fields. The rods were simple pieces of metal, but they carried the energy of nuclear weapons. The first Zephyrian cruiser simply vanished. One moment, it was there. The next, it was expanding cloud of debris and vapor. On his bridge, Veltar watched his fleet's lead ship die and felt something he had never felt before in his 300 years of life. Fear. High Commander Veltar stared at the empty space where his lead cruiser had been. His mind could not process what he had just seen. The ship had not been disabled. It had not surrendered. It had been completely destroyed in less than a second. Report, he shouted at his bridge crew. The human weapon, it was not energy-based, his weapons officer said, his voice shaking. It was a physical projectile moving at near light speed. Our shields could not deflect it. That's impossible. No one uses kinetic weapons anymore. They are primitive, strategic. Analyst Kixara looked up from her screen, her green scales now completely pale. Commander, I have been studying human weapons technology. They never stopped developing kinetic systems. While we perfected energy shields to stop energy weapons, they perfected projectile weapons to go through energy shields. Veltar felt panic rising in his chest. All ships, evasive maneuvers, maintain distance, but the USS Vengeance was already firing again. More tungsten rods shot across space like invisible spears. The second Zephyrian cruiser tried to dodge, but it was too slow. The kinetic projectile punched through its hull like paper, and the ship exploded from the inside out. Admiral Kane watched the second alien ship die and turned to his tactical officer. "Analysis, Commander Brooks?" Lisa Brooks studied her readouts with professional calm. "Their ships are built for energy weapon combat only, Admiral. Thin hulls, large shield generators, no armor plating. They cannot handle kinetic impact." "What about their formation?" "Standard defensive globe. Every ship is exactly where their computers tell them to be. No creativity, no adaptation." Kane nodded. This was what human military commanders had always known, but the galaxy had forgotten. Rigid tactics worked fine until you met someone who did not follow the same rules. "Captain Murphy," Kane spoke into his communication system. "Captain." Jake Murphy's voice came back immediately. "Yes, Admiral. Prepare boarding parties." There was a moment of silence. "Sir, did you say boarding parties?" "You heard correctly, Captain. We are going to take one of their ships intact." Veltar watched his tactical display in growing horror. The human ship was not maintaining safe distance like any civilized vessel would. Instead, it was moving closer to his remaining ships. Much closer. "What are they doing?" he asked. "Unknown, Commander. This behavior does not match any recorded combat pattern." Kixara was frantically reading through human military databases. What she found made her want to hide under her workstation. "Commander, humans have something called boarding actions. They actually send soldiers onto enemy ships during combat." "That is insane. Who would risk their soldiers in such a way?" "Humans, Commander. They have been doing it for thousands of years, from their wooden sailing ships to their space vessels." Veltar could not believe what he was hearing. "No civilized species fights hand to hand. We have energy weapons, we have shields. Combat is conducted at safe distances with mathematical precision." "Commander," his communications officer interrupted, "the human ship is launching small craft." On the main screen, Veltar watched dozens of small ships pour out of the USS Vengeance. They were not fighters in any sense he understood. They were heavily armored shuttles moving fast and low, weaving between his cruisers like insects. "Destroy them," he ordered. His ships fired their energy weapons at the small craft, but the shuttles were too fast and too small. They dodged between the energy beams, using speed and unpredictability instead of shields. Captain Murphy sat in the lead boarding shuttle, checking his equipment one last time. Around him, 40 Marine soldiers did the same. They wore full combat armor and carried weapons designed for close fighting inside enemy ships. 2 minutes to target, the pilot announced. Sergeant Amy Collins, sitting across from Murphy, grinned, behind her helmet faceplate. "Think they will know what hit them, Captain?" "Doubt it," Murphy replied. "According to intelligence, they have never seen boarding actions before. Their ships are not designed to repel boarders." Tech specialist Ryan Torres looked up from his equipment scanner. "Captain, I am reading their ship layouts. Wide corridors, thin internal walls, no security checkpoints. It is like they built these ships assuming no one would ever fight inside them." Murphy shook his head. These aliens had no idea what real combat looked like. They had spent so long fighting with computers and energy weapons that they had forgotten the most basic truth of warfare. Sometimes you had to get close and personal. 30 seconds, the pilot called out. The boarding shuttle slammed into the side of a Zephyrian cruiser with a sound like thunder. Magnetic clamps locked onto the alien hull, and the cutting torch began burning through the outer armor. Inside the Zephyrian ship, alarms were screaming. The crew ran around in panic, not knowing what to do. They had never trained for this situation because it had never happened before in galactic history. "What do we do?" A young Zephyrian officer asked his commander. I do not know," the commander replied. Their training covered energy weapon attacks, shield failures, and system overloads, but no one had ever told them what to do if enemies actually came inside their ship. The hull section exploded inward, and smoke filled the corridor. Through the smoke came shapes that the Zephyrians had never seen before. Humans in full combat, armor, carrying weapons that fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. Captain Murphy stepped through the breach first, his rifle ready. The corridor was exactly as Torres had predicted, wide, undefended, and full of confused aliens who had no idea how to fight at close range. "Secure the corridor," he ordered his Marines. "Collins, take your squad to the bridge. Torres, get to their computer core. I want this ship taken in 10 minutes. The Marines moved through the Zephyrian cruiser like a force of nature. The alien crew tried to resist, but their energy weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat, not fighting in narrow corridors. The humans used tactics that the Zephyrians had never imagined: smoke grenades, flashbang explosives, and coordinated squad movements. Sergeant Collins kicked in the door to the bridge and found the alien officers huddled behind their control panels. They looked at her with wide, terrified eyes. "Bridge secure," she reported to Murphy. Back on the USS Vengeance, Admiral Kane watched his boarding parties take control of the alien ship in less than 8 minutes. It was almost too easy. "Admiral," Commander Brooks reported, "the remaining Zephyrian ships are pulling back to long range." Kane was not surprised. The aliens were trying to get back to their comfort zone, where they could fight with energy weapons at safe distances. But Kane had no intention of letting them recover. "Launch fighters," he ordered. "Sir, they are not really fighters," Brooks pointed out. "They are modified shuttles with weapons attached." "I know exactly what they are, Commander. More small craft launched from the Vengeance, but these were different from the boarding shuttles. They were faster, more agile, and carried weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat. But like everything else human, they did not fight the way the galaxy expected. Instead of forming neat squadrons and engaging in organized combat, the human pilots spread out and attacked from every direction at once. They used asteroids for cover, flew in unpredictable patterns, and coordinated their attacks without any apparent central control. Veltar watched his fleet being torn apart by tactics he could not understand. His energy weapons could not track targets that refused to fly in straight lines. His computers could not calculate the best response to enemies that seemed to make decisions randomly. "Commander," Kixara said quietly, "I have finished reading the human military databases." "What did you find?" "They have been at war for their entire history. Every human military tactic has been tested in real combat against other humans. Their weapons, their strategies, their training, all of it comes from actual fighting experience." Veltar finally understood what he was facing. Every other species in the galaxy had evolved past warfare. They had turned combat into a science with rules and predictable outcomes, but humans had never stopped fighting. They had turned warfare into an art form. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked. 6 destroyed, 1 captured, 3 heavily damaged. Half his fleet was gone, and the human ship had barely been scratched. Its physical armor had absorbed everything his energy weapons could throw at it. "Commander," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the human admiral." "Put it through." Admiral Kane's voice filled the bridge, calm and professional. "Zephyrian Commander, you have 2 choices. Surrender now and be treated according to human military law, or continue fighting and be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to decide." Veltar looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. He thought about his remaining ships and the human vessel that seemed impossible to damage. He thought about the human soldiers who were probably still on his captured cruiser, studying Zephyrian technology and learning how to fight them even better. For the first time in his military career, High Commander Veltar made a decision based on fear instead of mathematics. "Send the surrender signal," he whispered. Admiral Kane looked at the surrender signal flashing on his screen and shook his head. "Belay that order, Commander Brooks. We are not accepting their surrender." Commander Lisa Brooks turned to stare at her admiral. "Sir, they are offering to surrender according to galactic protocols." "Galactic protocols did not stop them from attacking human civilians," Kane replied coldly. "They started this fight. We finish it on our terms." He opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian fleet. "Zephyrian Commander, your surrender is rejected. You attacked innocent people. Now you learn what happens when you wage war against humanity." High Commander Veltar felt his blood turn to ice. No one in galactic history had ever rejected a formal surrender. It went against every rule of civilized warfare. What do they want? He asked his bridge crew. Strategic analyst Kixara was studying her human databases with growing horror. Commander, I think they want to make an example of us. In human history, when someone attacked their civilians, they did not just defeat the enemy. They destroyed them completely so others would know not to try again. Veltar could not believe what he was hearing. But we surrendered. The fighting should be over. Not by human rules, Commander. On the USS Vengeance, Admiral Kane was implementing something the galaxy had never seen before. Total warfare. Not the mathematical precision of galactic combat, but the complete dedication to victory that humans had learned over 10,000 years of fighting. Captain Murphy, Kane spoke into his communicator. Yes, Admiral? How many prisoners did you take from that cruiser? 47 aliens, sir. They offered no real resistance once we were aboard. Treat them well, Captain, but I want you to show them something first. What would that be, sir? Kane smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Show them what human soldiers look like when they fight. Captain Murphy understood immediately. He gathered his Marines in the captured cruiser's main cargo bay, where the Zephyrian prisoners were being held. The aliens huddled together, their purple and green scales pale with fear. Listen up, Murphy told his soldiers. We are going to give our new friends here a history lesson. Tech specialist Ryan Torres had connected his equipment to the ship's main display screen. What appeared made the Zephyrian prisoners gasp in terror. It was video footage from human military history, Vikings charging into battle with axes and shields, Roman legions marching across ancient battlefields, medieval knights in full armor fighting with swords, World War II soldiers storming beaches under enemy fire. This is how humans have always fought, Murphy explained to the trembling aliens. Not with computers and calculations, with courage and steel. The videos continued. Tank battles from Earth's colonial wars, space marines fighting in the asteroid mines, urban combat on Mars, during the mining strikes. Every image showed humans fighting up close, face-to-face with their enemies. Sergeant Amy Collins added her own commentary. See how they keep fighting even when they are hurt? That soldier there just lost his arm, but he is still shooting. That Marine is bleeding from 3 wounds, but he keeps moving forward. The Zephyrian prisoners watched in horrified fascination. They had never seen anything like this. In their wars, soldiers retreated when they were injured. Combat stopped when casualties reached 15%. But these humans seemed to fight harder when they were hurt. Why do they not retreat? One of the alien prisoners asked in broken human language. Because retreat means their friends die, Murphy answered simply, and humans do not let their friends die if they can help it. Meanwhile, on the Vengeance Bridge, Commander Brooks was analyzing the remaining Zephyrian ships. Admiral, they are trying to withdraw to long range. They want to fight from a distance, where they feel safe. Then we do not let them feel safe, Kane replied. Launch all fighters full attack formation, but the human fighters did not attack the way any galactic species expected. Instead of engaging the alien ships directly, they began broadcasting on all frequencies. What they transmitted made every alien crew member stop what they were doing and listen in shock. It was audio recordings from human battles. The sounds of soldiers charging into combat, screaming war cries that had not changed in 10,000 years. The noise of human weapons firing. The voices of human commanders shouting orders under fire. Then came something worse. Human military music. Songs about fighting and dying for your comrades. Anthems about never surrendering. Battle hymns that spoke of death before dishonor. Dr. Helen Park, the Vengeance's combat psychologist, monitored the alien communications as the broadcasts took effect. What she heard confirmed her theories about galactic psychology. Admiral, she reported, their crew communications are showing signs of panic. Several ships report crew members refusing to man their battle stations. Why? They have never heard anything like our military culture before. To them, combat is a job. To us, it is a calling. They cannot understand enemies who seem to enjoy fighting. The psychological warfare was working better than Kane had hoped. 3 more Zephyrian cruisers stopped firing entirely, as their crews abandoned their posts. The aliens were not cowards, but they had never faced an enemy that seemed to welcome combat instead of avoiding it. Lieutenant Sam Rivera, flying his modified fighter, took advantage of the alien confusion. While the Zephyrian ships were distracted by the broadcasts, he flew his small craft directly into their formation. What he did next had never been attempted in galactic warfare. He began ramming their weapon turrets with his armored fighter. The Zephyrian weapons officer on Veltar's ship watched in disbelief as the human pilot deliberately crashed his small craft into their gun mounts, destroying them one by one. "He is sacrificing his ship to damage ours," the officer reported. "Why would he do that?" Veltar had no answer. In civilized warfare, no pilot would sacrifice his valuable fighter to damage a single weapon turret. The mathematics made no sense. But Lieutenant Rivera was not done. After destroying 3 gun turrets, he ejected from his damaged fighter and used his personal thruster pack to land on the Zephyrian hull. Then he began placing explosive charges on their shield generators. "There is a human soldier on our outer hull!" the weapons officer screamed. "Impossible! No one fights in the vacuum of space." "Tell that to the human, Commander." Rivera finished placing his charges and pushed off from the alien hull. The explosions that followed knocked out 2 shield generators and left the Zephyrian cruiser defenseless. Back on the USS Vengeance, Admiral Kane was receiving reports from all his units. The psychological warfare was breaking the alien fleet's will to fight. The boarding parties had captured 2 more ships. The fighter attacks had disabled 3 others. "Admiral," Commander Brooks reported, "we have received a priority transmission from Zephyrian High Command. They are ordering their fleet to withdraw immediately. Do we let them go?" Kane thought about the 50,000 human civilians on Haven's Rest colony. He thought about the message this battle would send to every other species in the galaxy. He thought about the future of humanity among the stars. Negative. We pursue. What happened next had never occurred in galactic history. A human fleet chased a retreating enemy across 3 star systems, destroying ships that tried to escape and capturing others intact. The Zephyrians could not believe that anyone would continue fighting after the enemy had tried to withdraw. The final battle took place near a Zephyrian military station. High Commander Veltar, down to his last 3 ships, made a desperate transmission to Admiral Kane. "Human Admiral, please. We acknowledge your superiority. We will pay compensation for the colony attack. We offer tribute and territory. What more do you want?" Kane's response was broadcast across the entire Zephyrian fleet and to their military command. His words would be remembered throughout galactic history. "Commander, you made a mistake. You thought war was about mathematics and technology. You thought it was about who had the biggest guns or the best shields. But war is not about equipment. War is about will, and humans have something that your species lost long ago." "What is that?" "We remember what we are fighting for. The last 3 Zephyrian ships surrendered not because their shields failed or their weapons ran out of power, but because their crews could no longer face an enemy that fought with such terrible determination." As Admiral Kane accepted the final surrender, Dr. Park made her report to Earth Command. Her analysis would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. "The Zephyrians and other galactic species evolved past their warrior phase," she explained. "They turned combat into a science because they wanted to minimize violence. But humans never stopped being warriors. We just became better at it." The battle was over, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy had just begun. The news of the Zephyrian fleet's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. In the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime, representatives from 50 different species gathered in emergency session. They had all received the same impossible reports. A single human warship had destroyed an entire Zephyrian battle fleet. Council leader Thexani, a tall insectoid being with silver carapace, called the session to order. "We are here to discuss the human incident. High Commander Veltar, please explain what happened." Veltar stood before the council, his purple scales now faded to gray with shame. Behind him, The main display showed tactical recordings of the battle. Honored Council, the humans do not fight like any known species. They use tactics that violate every principle of civilized warfare. Explain, Thexani commanded. They rejected our surrender. They pursued retreating ships. They boarded our vessels during combat. They fight as if, Veltar struggled to find words, as if they enjoy it. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the council chamber. Meanwhile, 3 star systems away, Admiral Kane was dealing with a problem no human commander had ever faced before. The USS Vengeance was badly damaged from the battle, but they were deep in alien space with no friendly ports for repairs. Damage report, Kane asked his chief engineer. Main engines at 60%, Admiral. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Shield generators are running hot. We need a starbase for proper repairs. Kane looked at the tactical display showing their location. They were surrounded by former Zephyrian territory, with no human support for weeks of travel. Commander Brooks had a suggestion. Admiral, we have captured 3 intact Zephyrian cruisers. Maybe we can use their technology. Their technology is completely different from ours. Tech specialist Torres spoke up from his workstation. Not necessarily, sir. I have been studying their systems. Their energy technology is actually more advanced than ours in some ways. If we could adapt it, Kane made a decision that would prove to be one of the most important in human military history. Do it. Strip whatever we can use from the captured ships. What happened next was something no galactic species had ever attempted. The human crew began rebuilding their warship using alien technology, not in a space dock with proper tools, but in the middle of space while potentially hostile forces could attack at any moment. Sergeant Collins led a team of Marines into the captured Zephyrian cruiser. Their mission was to remove the alien shield generators and somehow make them work with human systems. These things are twice as big as our generators, one Marine complained. Then we make bigger mounting brackets, Collins replied. Torres, how do we connect their power systems to ours? Torres was already elbow-deep in alien control panels. Their systems use crystalline matrices instead of circuits, but I think I can build a converter interface. Dr. Park watched the human crew work and realized they were witnessing something remarkable. Admiral, what they are doing should be impossible. Our technology and theirs are completely incompatible. Should be impossible, Kane agreed. But humans have been making impossible things work for thousands of years. The human crew attacked the problem with typical human innovation. When the alien shield generators would not fit in human mounting points, they cut new holes in the hull. When the power systems would not connect, they built new interfaces. When the alien computers would not talk to human systems, they created translation programs. Lieutenant Rivera, recovered from his spacewalk adventure, was working on integrating Zephyrian weapons with human targeting systems. Admiral, their energy cannons are more powerful than our kinetic guns, but their targeting is too slow. Can you fix it? I think so. If I bypass their automatic systems and connect directly to our fire control, we might get the best of both technologies. Back at the Galactic Council, strategic analyst Kixara was presenting her complete analysis of human warfare. What she had discovered made the assembled representatives increasingly uncomfortable. Humans have been at war continuously for 10,000 years, she explained. But it is not random violence. Every conflict has taught them something new. They learn from their defeats and improve their victories. All species go through a warrior phase, Council Leader Thexani interrupted. Then they evolve past it. That is what makes humans different, Kixara continued. They never evolved past warfare, they evolved because of warfare. Every aspect of their society is built around the idea that they might have to fight for their survival at any moment. She activated a holographic display showing human military development. Look at their technology progression. While we developed energy weapons for efficiency, they developed kinetic weapons for maximum destruction. While we created shields to deflect attacks, they created armor to absorb damage. While we built ships for long-range combat, they built ships for close-range fighting. What are you saying? Asked Representative Zolkar. a crystalline being whose species had not fought a war in over 1,000 years. I am saying that humans are not just another species with advanced weapons. They are warfare itself evolved into intelligent form. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Back on the USS Vengeance, the impossible was becoming possible. After 3 days of continuous work, the human crew had successfully integrated alien technology with their own systems. The result was a warship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Power up the new systems," Kane ordered. The hybrid shield generators came online, creating energy barriers that were twice as strong as the original human shields. The modified weapon systems charged up, combining human targeting speed with alien energy output. The enhanced engines hummed with power from both human and Zephyrian technologies. Commander Brooks stared at her tactical displays in amazement. "Admiral, our combat capability has increased by over 300%. And we did it in 3 days in the middle of space," Kane observed. The Zephyrians probably spent years developing each of these systems. Dr. Park had been monitoring communications throughout the sector. "Admiral, I am picking up increased chatter from multiple alien fleets. Word of our victory is spreading, and not everyone is happy about it." "How not happy?" 3 different species have mobilized their fleets. They are calling it a threat assessment mission, but it looks like they want to test us. Kane studied the strategic display. Multiple alien fleets were converging on their position from different directions. Any one of them was larger than the Zephyrian force they had just defeated. "Recommendations?" he asked his staff. "We should withdraw to human space," Brooks suggested. "We are outnumbered 50 to 1. "That would take weeks," Kane replied. "They would catch us long before we reached friendly territory." Captain Murphy had a different idea. "Admiral, maybe we should not run." "Explain." "We just proved that one human ship can defeat a Zephyrian fleet. Now 3 different alien species want to test us. Maybe it is time to show the galaxy what happens when they all test us at once." Kane considered the captain's words. The logical move was to retreat and call for reinforcements. But logic was not always the human way. "Dr. Park, what is your psychological assessment of the situation?" "The alien species are scared, Admiral. Our victory over the Zephyrians has shattered their understanding of how warfare works. They need to test us to see if we are really as dangerous as we appear. And if we run, they will assume we got lucky once. They will keep testing us until they find our weakness." Kane made his decision with the same calm confidence he had shown throughout the battle. "Then we do not run. We show them that luck had nothing to do with it." He opened a communication channel to the approaching alien fleets. "Attention, alien commanders. This is Admiral Marcus Kane of the human battleship USS Vengeance. You are approaching human territory. State your intentions." The response came from multiple sources at once, 3 different alien commanders speaking for 3 different species, all saying essentially the same thing. They wanted to see if humans were really as dangerous as reported. Kane's reply would be remembered throughout galactic history. "You want to test human capabilities? Very well. All 3 of your fleets may attack simultaneously. We will demonstrate why humans do not need luck to win battles." As the alien fleets moved into attack position, the crew of the USS Vengeance prepared for the impossible. A single human ship against 3 entire alien battle fleets. But they were no longer just human. They were human plus, enhanced with alien technology, and driven by 10,000 years of warrior evolution. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you gave humans better tools to fight with. The 3 alien fleets approached the USS Vengeance from different directions, their formations perfect examples of galactic military doctrine. The Hegemony fleet came from the north with 25 cruisers in a defensive wall. The Confederation approached from the east with 30 ships in a strike formation. The Alliance moved in from the south with 18 heavy battleships that were twice the size of normal cruisers. Admiral Kane stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display, as 73 enemy ships surrounded his single vessel. By every rule of galactic warfare, the USS Vengeance should have been destroyed in minutes. "All enemy fleets are in position," Commander Brooks reported. They are hailing us. Put them through. 3 alien voices spoke at once, their words overlapping, in a mixture of languages that the ship's computers translated into human speech. Human vessel, you are outnumbered 73 to 1. Surrender now and we will treat you according to galactic law. Kane activated his communications system. This is Admiral Kane. You came here to test human capabilities. Consider this your test. He turned to his crew. All stations battle ready. Show them what humans do when the odds are against us. The first shots came from the Hegemony fleet. 25 energy cannons fired at once, creating a wall of destructive power that should have vaporized any ship in the galaxy. Instead, the hybrid shields that Torres had installed absorbed the energy and converted it into power for the human weapon systems. Shields holding at 95%, Brooks reported, and our power levels are actually increasing. Kane smiled. Return fire, full spread. The USS Vengeance fired back with weapons that no ship in galactic history had ever carried. Human. Kinetic guns combined with alien energy systems created projectiles that were both physical and energetic. The tungsten rods were wrapped in energy fields that made them even more destructive. 3 Hegemony cruisers simply ceased to exist. Impossible. The Hegemony commander's voice crackled over the communication system. No single ship has that much firepower. You are fighting humans now, Kane replied calmly. We do not follow your rules. The Confederation fleet attacked next, trying to use their superior numbers to overwhelm the human ship. Their 30 vessels fired in sequence, creating a continuous stream of energy weapons fire. Captain Murphy watched the display from the Marine Command Center. Admiral, request permission to launch boarding parties. Against 30 ships? Yes, sir. We have learned how to use their transportation systems. We can board multiple ships simultaneously. Kane had seen his Marines do impossible things before. Permission granted. Show them what human soldiers can do. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The USS Vengeance launched not 1 or 2 boarding shuttles, but dozens of them. Each shuttle carried a small team of Marines equipped with captured alien technology and human tactics. Sergeant Collins led one team onto a Confederation cruiser. The alien crew was expecting the usual polite surrender negotiations. Instead, they found themselves facing humans who had studied their ship layouts and knew exactly where to strike. Secure the bridge, Collins ordered her team. Torres, get to their computer core. I want their navigation systems. What are you planning, Sergeant? We are going to turn their own ships against them. While the Marines were taking control of enemy vessels, the Alliance fleet made their attack. Their 18 heavy battleships fired together, creating energy, beams that were more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The USS Vengeance took the full force of the attack. For a moment, even the hybrid shields flickered. Damage report, Kane called out. Shields at 60%, Brooks replied. But we are holding. Dr. Park was monitoring the psychological effects of the battle on the enemy crews. Admiral, I am detecting panic in their communications. They cannot understand why their most powerful weapons are not working. Then let us give them something else to think about, Kane said. Launch all fighters. Lieutenant Rivera led the fighter attack, but these were not the same fighters that had attacked the Zephyrians. Using alien technology, the human pilots had modified their ships to be faster, more maneuverable, and deadlier than anything in galactic history. Rivera's fighter squadron attacked the Alliance battleships using tactics that no galactic pilot had ever imagined. They flew inside the enemy formation, using the large ships as cover while they targeted weapon systems and engines. This is insane, the Alliance commander broadcast on all frequencies. They are flying suicide missions. No, Rivera replied over the communication system. We are flying human missions. The fighter attack was devastating, but it was not the end of the human surprises. On 5 different Confederation ships, Marine teams had successfully taken control of the navigation systems. Under Collins' coordination, they turned the captured ships around and began firing on their own fleet. Admiral, Murphy reported, we now have 5 enemy ships under human control. Use them, Kane ordered. The battle became chaos as the Confederation fleet found themselves fighting their own ships. The Alliance battleships were being torn apart by human fighters that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. The hegemony cruisers were being destroyed by weapons that their shields could not stop. In the middle of it all, the USS Vengeance continued to fight with the calm efficiency that had marked human warfare for 10,000 years. "Admiral," Brooks reported, "the enemy fleets are trying to withdraw." "Let them go," Kane said, "but not before they understand what they have learned today." He opened a communication channel to all three fleets. "Attention, alien commanders. You came here to test human capabilities. You have seen what one human ship can do against 73 of your best vessels. Remember this when you return to your homeworlds. Remember this when you consider attacking human colonies. Remember this when you think about making war against humanity." The alien fleets retreated in disorder, leaving behind 28 destroyed ships and hundreds of confused survivors who would spend the rest of their lives trying to explain what they had witnessed. 3 months later, Ambassador Claire Watson arrived at the Galactic Council with a human delegation. The council chamber was packed with representatives from every major species in the galaxy. All of them wanted to understand what humanity meant for the future of galactic civilization. "Honored Council," Watson began, "humanity wishes to join the galactic community as an equal partner. We offer our technology, our knowledge, and our protection to all peaceful species." Council leader Thexani asked the question that everyone was thinking. "And if we refuse?" Watson smiled, but it was not a threatening expression. "Then you continue to live in a galaxy where the strongest species preys on the weakest, where advanced civilizations conquer primitive ones, where might makes right. And if we accept? Then you live in a galaxy where humans stand guard, where no species needs to fear extinction, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them." The vote was unanimous. 6 months after the battle, Admiral Kane found himself promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of the first human galactic defense force. The USS Vengeance had been joined by a dozen other human ships, all of them equipped with the hybrid technology that had proven so effective. Kane stood on the bridge of his new flagship, watching a patrol of human ships escort a convoy of alien traders through space that had once been controlled by pirates. "Admiral," Commander Brooks reported, "we are receiving a distress call from the Vega system. Slavers are attacking a refugee convoy." Kane did not hesitate. "Set course for Vega. Maximum speed." "Sir, that is outside our assigned patrol area." "Commander, when humans hear a call for help, geography becomes irrelevant." As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, Kane reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The old system of civilized warfare was dead. In its place was something new, a galaxy where the most dangerous predators had become the most dedicated protectors. The other species had spent thousands of years trying to evolve past their warrior nature. Humans had spent thousands of years perfecting it. And now, for the first time in galactic history, the galaxy's greatest fighters were also its greatest defenders. In the depths of space, human ships patrolled the trade routes. In council chambers, human diplomats negotiated from positions of strength. In military academies, alien cadets studied human tactics and learned that sometimes the best way to preserve peace was to be very, very good at war. The galaxy had learned that humans were not just another species with advanced technology. They were something new and unprecedented. Warriors who fought not for conquest, but for protection. Soldiers who used their strength to defend the weak instead of exploiting them. What Admiral Kane's final log entry summed up humanity's new role in the galaxy. "We came to the stars as explorers. We became warriors out of necessity. Now we serve as guardians by choice. The galaxy is safer because humans are here to fight for it." The age of civilized warfare was over. The age of human protection had begun. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the wide window of the orbital defense station and watched Earth turn slowly below him. The blue planet looked peaceful in the morning light. White clouds moved across the oceans like soft cotton. Cities sparkled like tiny diamonds on the dark continents. Jake had seen this view 1,000 times, but it never got old. The year was 2387. Humans had been living in space for over 200 years now. They built cities on the moon, grew food on Mars, and mined rocks in the asteroid belt. 5 years ago, they met their first aliens. The meeting went well. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Federation. They welcomed humans as new friends. Jake walked back to his command chair. The defense station called New Horizon was his home and his job. He commanded 50 people who watched the space around Earth. They looked for trouble, but trouble rarely came. Most days were quiet and boring. Lieutenant Amy Carter sat at her station nearby. She stared at 3 big screens full of numbers and moving dots. Each dot was a ship or a rock floating in space. Amy knew where every dot belonged. She had been doing this job for 3 years. "Captain," Amy said suddenly. Her voice sounded strange. "I'm getting some weird readings." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of weird?" Amy pointed at her middle screen. "Big gravity waves coming from the edge of the solar system. Really, big ones, like something huge just dropped out of hyperspace." Jake felt his heart beat faster. "How big?" Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. The screen changed to show new information. Her face went pale. "Sir, I count at least 9,000 ships. Maybe more." The command center went quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at Amy's screen. 9,000 ships was more than the entire human space fleet. "Much more, are you sure?" Jake asked. Amy checked her readings again. "Yes, sir. 9,897 ships. They're all moving toward Earth." Jake hit the red alert button. Loud sirens started wailing throughout the station. "Get me Admiral Stone right now." Admiral Rick Stone appeared on the main screen 2 minutes later. He was an older man with gray hair and serious eyes. Behind him, Jake could see the busy command center of Earth's military headquarters. "Jake, what's the situation?" "Admiral, we have nearly 10,000 unknown ships approaching from deep space. They're not broadcasting any friendly signals." Admiral Stone's face grew dark. 10,000? That's impossible. The Federation only has a few hundred ships in this sector. "Sir, Lieutenant Carter has confirmed the count. These ships are not from the Federation." Admiral Stone was quiet for a moment. "How long until they reach Earth?" Amy spoke up. "At their current speed, about 18 hours, sir." 18 hours, Admiral Stone repeated. "Jake, I'm calling up the entire defense fleet. Get your people ready, this might be bad." The screen went dark. Jake turned to face his crew. They all looked scared. He didn't blame them. The human defense fleet had only 387 ships. They were good ships, but not nearly enough to fight 10,000 enemies. "Listen up, everyone," Jake said. "We don't know who these visitors are or what they want, but we're going to be ready for them. Amy, keep tracking those ships. Send all the data to Fleet Command. Everyone else, prepare the station for combat operations." His crew got busy. They checked weapons, tested shields, and sent messages to other defense stations. Jake watched them work and felt proud. These were good people. They would do their jobs no matter what happened. Lieutenant Danny Price called from the fighter bay. "Captain, my squadron is ready to launch. Just give the word." "Hold position for now, Danny. We need to see what these ships want first." 6 hours later, the unknown ships were close enough to see clearly. They were huge and dark, shaped like long daggers. Each ship was twice the size of Earth's biggest battleship. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of deadly fish. Commander. Lisa Bell arrived on the station with orders from Admiral Stone. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and quick hands. "Jake, I need to use your communications array. Admiral Stone wants to try talking to them." "Go ahead, Lisa, the whole system is yours." Lisa worked at the communications station for an hour. She sent messages in every language humans knew. She used Federation communication codes. She even sent simple math problems to show that humans were intelligent. Nothing worked. The alien ships stayed silent. Then suddenly they answered. The message came in perfect English. The voice was cold and mechanical. "Humans of Earth, we are the Kethvar Empire. Your species has grown too quickly. You have become a threat to galactic order. You have 24 hours to surrender your planet unconditionally. If you refuse, we will destroy your entire species. You cannot fight us. You cannot hide from us. You will surrender, or you will die. The message ended. The command center was completely silent. Lisa looked at Jake with wide eyes. They want us to surrender our entire planet? Jake nodded slowly. That's what they said. But we just joined the Federation 5 years ago. We've never hurt anyone. We've never even had a real war with another species. Doesn't matter to them, apparently. Amy spoke from her station. Captain, I'm detecting more ships. The count is now 9,900 exactly. Jake walked back to the window and looked down at Earth. Somewhere down there, 8 billion people were living their normal lives. They had no idea that in 24 hours, everything might end. He touched the communication button that connected him to Admiral Stone. Admiral, did you get that message? We all heard it, Jake. The President is calling an emergency meeting, but I think we both know what the answer is going to be. Jake nodded. We fight. We fight, Admiral Stone agreed. Get your people ready, Captain. Tomorrow is going to be a very long day. Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 9,900 enemy ships were getting ready to destroy his home. He thought about his sister on Mars and his parents in New York. He thought about all the places on Earth he would never see again. Then he thought about the human spirit. Humans had always been fighters. They fought diseases, disasters, and each other. They never gave up when things got hard. Maybe they couldn't win against 9,900 ships, but they could make the enemy pay a terrible price. Amy, he called out, send a message to all defense stations and ships. Tell them to prepare for battle. Tell them we're going to show these Kethvar what humans are really made of. The 24 hours passed too quickly. Captain Jake Morrison watched the enemy fleet spread out like a dark cloud around Earth. The Kethvar ships moved in perfect lines and circles. They looked like they had practiced this attack many times. Before Admiral Stone's voice came through the speakers. All ships, this is Fleet Command. The enemy has refused our request to talk. They want only surrender or death. We choose to fight. Remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for every human who will ever be born. Make them pay for every inch of space. Jake looked at his crew on the New Horizon. They were scared but ready. Lieutenant Amy Carter sat at her station, tracking enemy movements. Commander, Lisa Bell worked at the weapons controls. Lieutenant Danny Price waited in his fighter, ready to launch. Jake, Admiral Stone called on the private channel. I want you to lead the first attack. Take 12 ships and hit their command group. Try to confuse them, make them think we have a plan. Jake almost laughed. Do we have a plan, Admiral? The plan is simple. We hurt them as much as we can before we die. Maybe that will make other aliens think twice about attacking Earth in the future. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Understood, Admiral. We'll give them something to remember. Jake called his squadron commanders. This is Morrison. We're going in first. Follow my lead and don't try to be heroes. We want to hit them fast and get out. Our job is to make them angry and stupid. The 12 human ships moved toward the enemy fleet. They were small compared to the massive Kethvar battleships. Jake's ship, the New Horizon, was not even a real warship. It was a defense station with engines attached, but it had big guns and thick armor. Captain, Amy said, the enemy ships are not moving to stop us. They're just watching. Jake understood. The Kethvar thought humans were too weak to be a real threat. They were wrong. Danny, launch your fighters. Everyone else, pick your targets. We hit the big ships in the center. 20 human fighters raced, ahead of the main group. Lieutenant Danny Price led them in a wild dance around the enemy ships. The fighters moved in ways that made no sense. They spun and twisted like leaves in the wind. The Kethvar tried to shoot them down, but their weapons could not track the crazy human movements. Danny's fighters were not trying to fly in straight lines or perfect formations. They flew like humans thought. Fast, wild, and unpredictable. What are they doing? Amy asked, watching the fighters on her screen. They're thinking like humans, Jake said. The aliens expect us to fight like machines, but we're not machines. Danny's voice came over the radio. He was laughing as his fighter rolled under a massive enemy laser blast. These big ships can't turn fast enough to catch us. It's like fighting elephants with mosquitoes. The fighters reached the enemy command ships. They fired their small missiles at the huge vessels. The missiles did not do much damage, but they hit exactly where Danny aimed them, at the sensor arrays and communication dishes. Suddenly, 3 of the big Kethvar ships could not talk to each other. They started turning in different directions, trying to find the fighters that had already moved away. "Now!" Jake shouted. "All ships, full attack!" The 12 human ships charged into the confused enemy formation. Jake aimed the New Horizon at the biggest Kethvar battleship. His weapons officer, Sergeant Tony Clark, fired everything they had. The human ships did not fight like the Kethvar expected. Instead of staying in formation, each ship went in a different direction. Instead of fighting from far away, they got as close as possible. Instead of following rules, they did whatever worked. Commander Helen Ross, commanding the ship called Earth's Fury, flew her vessel between 2 enemy battleships. The aliens tried to shoot her, but they hit each other instead. Helen laughed over the radio. They're so worried about hitting their own ships they can't shoot straight. The battle was chaos. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They hit the enemy where it hurt most, then ran away before the big guns could target them. It was not fair fighting. It was human fighting. Jake watched his weapons hit the enemy command ship. The massive vessel's shields flashed and sparked. Then something exploded inside the ship. The whole front section went dark. "Direct hit," Tony shouted. "Their main weapon is down." But the victory cost them. The Kethvar were learning fast. They started firing in all directions, not caring if they hit their own ships. 3 human vessels exploded in bright flashes. Jake felt each death like a punch to his chest. "Pull back," he ordered. "We've done enough damage here." The surviving human ships raced away from the enemy fleet. Behind them, the Kethvar formation was in chaos. 12 ships had been destroyed or badly damaged. Several more were drifting with no power. But Jake had lost 3 ships and 60 crew members. The enemy still had over 9,000 ships left. "Admiral," Jake reported, "first attack complete. We took out 12 enemy vessels and damaged several more. Cost us 3 ships. Admiral Stone's voice was grim. "Good work, Jake, but they're really angry now. The whole fleet is moving toward Earth. All ships, prepare for the main battle." Jake looked at his remaining ships. They were damaged and low on ammunition. His crew was tired and scared, but something had happened during the fight. They had seen that the enemy could be hurt. The Kethvar were not gods. They were just another species that could bleed. "Amy," Jake said, "how many enemy ships are still working?" Amy checked her screens. "About 9,883, sir. But 15 of them are moving slowly, probably damaged." Jake smiled for the first time in hours. "So we hurt them more than they hurt us?" "Yes, sir, much more." "Good. Send that information to all human ships. Let everyone know that these aliens can be beaten. It just takes more work than usual." The Kethvar fleet began moving toward Earth, like a giant metal storm. They had learned that humans were dangerous. Now they wanted to finish the fight quickly. Jake prepared his ships for the next battle. He knew most of them would not survive. But the enemy would remember this day. They would remember that humans do not give up, even when facing impossible odds. The real fight was about to begin. The Kethvar fleet moved closer to Earth like a wall of death. Their ships spread out to surround the planet completely. There would be no escape for anyone. Admiral Stone ordered all human ships to form a protective ring around Earth, but everyone knew it was not enough. Captain Jake Morrison watched the enemy approach from his command chair. The first battle had shown that humans could hurt the aliens, but the cost was terrible. For every Kethvar ship destroyed, humans lost 10 ships. The math was simple and brutal. "Captain," Lieutenant Amy Carter called out, "I'm getting a strange signal from the medical ship, Mercy Angel." Jake looked at the main screen. The Mercy Angel was a hospital ship commanded by Captain Sue Martinez. It carried no weapons, only doctors and medical supplies. The ship was supposed to stay far from the fighting. "Put her through," Jake said. Captain Martinez appeared on the screen. She was a small woman with fierce eyes and graying hair. Behind her, Jake could see injured soldiers lying on hospital beds. "Jake, I need to tell you something important. These wounded HFY prisoners we picked up, they're acting very strange." "Strange how?" "They keep asking us why we fight when we know we will lose. They cannot understand it. Their own soldiers surrender when they think death is certain. But humans keep fighting even when there is no hope." Jake thought about this. "What are you saying, Sue?" "I'm saying we have something they don't understand. Something that scares them more than our weapons." Before Jake could answer, alarms started, ringing throughout his ship. The HFY fleet had begun their main attack. Thousands of energy beams lit up space like deadly fireworks. Captain Martinez's image flickered on the screen. "Jake, I have an idea. A crazy idea." "Tell me." "The Mercy Angel has no weapons, so they ignore us. But we have medical supplies, including chemicals that could be very dangerous if mixed together. What if we turn our medical ship into a weapon?" Jake stared at her. "Sue, that's suicide. Maybe. But it might save more lives than it costs." Before Jake could stop her, Captain Martinez cut the connection. On his screen, Jake watched the Mercy Angel turn toward the enemy fleet. The small medical ship looked like a tiny bird flying toward a flock of eagles. "All ships," Admiral Stone's voice came over the radio. "The enemy is concentrating their attack on the orbital defense platforms. We need to protect them at all costs." Jake looked at his tactical display. The human fleet was already falling apart. Ships exploded every few seconds. The HFY were using their superior numbers to surround and destroy each human vessel. "Captain," Sergeant Tony Clark shouted from the weapons station, "enemy boarding parties are trying to get onto Defense Platform 7. Jake could see the platform on his screen. It was under attack by dozens of small HFY ships. They were cutting through the hull with laser torches, trying to get inside and capture the station. "Danny, take your fighters and help Platform 7 stop those boarding parties." Lieutenant Danny Price's voice crackled over the radio. "On our way, Captain, but we're running low on ammunition." "Then use whatever you have left." Jake watched. Danny's fighters raced toward the besieged platform. Instead of using their guns, the fighters started ramming into the alien boarding ships. The human pilots were turning their own fighters into missiles. "What are they doing?" Amy asked in horror. "They're doing what humans do," Jake said quietly. "They're refusing to give up." On Platform 7, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Adams was leading the defense against the HFY boarders. The aliens had cut through the hull and were fighting in the corridors. But Steve had turned every hallway into a trap. Steve's voice came over the emergency channel. "These aliens fight like machines. Perfect formation, perfect timing, perfect plans. But humans don't fight perfect. We fight dirty." Jake could hear weapons fire and explosions in the background. Steve was using maintenance tunnels and air vents to attack the aliens from unexpected directions. His small team of defenders was holding off hundreds of enemy soldiers. "Steve, can you hold them?" "As long as it takes, Jake. These corridors are our home. We know every inch of this place. The aliens are lost in here." Suddenly a new voice came over the radio. It was Dr. Alice Green, calling from the hidden research base on the far side of the moon. "All ships, this is Lunar Research Station. I've been studying the battle recordings and I've discovered something important about the enemy." "What is it, Alice?" Admiral Stone asked. "The HFY make decisions based on logic and probability. When they calculate that a battle cannot be won, their soldiers stop fighting. But humans keep fighting even when logic says they should surrender. This confuses their commanders and makes their soldiers afraid." Jake understood what she was saying. "You mean our stubbornness is actually a weapon?" "Exactly. The HFY have never fought an enemy that refuses to accept defeat. They don't know how to deal with it." On his screen, Jake watched the Mercy Angel reach the enemy fleet. Captain Martinez had turned her medical ship into a giant bomb. When it exploded, it took 3 HFY battleships with it. The explosion sent a message to every human ship in the fleet. One medical ship had just done more damage than a squadron of fighters. Not because it had better weapons, but because Captain Martinez had been willing to sacrifice everything. "All ships," Jake called out. "You saw what the Mercy Angel just did. We may not have the biggest guns or the strongest shields, but we have something the enemy cannot understand. We have the will to fight when fighting seems hopeless." Engineer Ben Parker's voice came over the radio from Mining Station Delta. "Captain Morrison, I've got an idea. We have mining explosives here, and I think I can turn them into something special." "What kind of special?" "The kind that makes big holes in enemy ships." Jake smiled. This was what made humans dangerous. Not their technology or their training, but their ability to turn anything into a weapon when they needed to. Pilot Karen White called from her damaged fighter. "Captain, my life support is failing, but I still have engine power. Permission to ram the enemy command ship?" "Negative, Karen. Get to safety." "Sir, with respect, safety is not the human way." Jake watched Karen's fighter streak toward the massive HFY command vessel. She hit it at full speed right in the bridge section. The entire front of the alien ship went dark. The battle raged on, but something had changed. The HFY fleet was no longer advancing in perfect formation. Their ships were spreading out, trying to avoid the suicide attacks. They were afraid. Fear was something the HFY did not understand. But humans understood it very well. They had been afraid their whole lives, and they had learned to keep fighting anyway. Jake prepared his remaining ships for the next wave of attacks. The enemy still outnumbered them terribly, but now the aliens knew they were fighting something they had never encountered before. They were fighting the human spirit. Only 47 human ships remained. Captain Jake Morrison looked at his tactical screen and felt a cold weight in his chest. The HFY still had nearly 4,000 ships left. The math was impossible, but humans had never been good at math when it came to giving up. Admiral Stone's face appeared on the main screen. The old man looked tired and wounded. Blood ran down his forehead from a cut above his eye. Behind him, Jake could see smoke and sparks in the Fleet Command Center. "Jake, we're going to make one final push at their flagship. If we can take out their command structure, maybe their fleet will fall apart." Jake nodded. "How many ships do you want me to bring?" "All of them. Every ship we have left. This is our last chance to hurt them badly enough that they'll remember us forever." Lieutenant Amy Carter looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting movement in the civilian evacuation ships. They're turning back toward Earth." Jake felt his heart sink. The evacuation ships are supposed to be heading to Mars. Why are they coming back? A new voice came over the radio. It was Sergeant Julie Evans coordinating the civilian evacuation from the transport ship New Hope. "Captain Morrison, the civilians want to help. They say they won't run away while the military fights alone." "Julie, those are not warships. They're carrying children and families. They need to get to safety." "Sir, they say their families are on Earth. If Earth dies, they want to die fighting for it." Jake closed his eyes. This was the human way. When everything seemed lost, humans did not run away. They came back to help even when help seemed impossible. Commander Helen Ross's voice came from the heavy cruiser, Earth's Fury. "Jake, I have an idea. The New Horizon is badly damaged, but it's still the biggest thing we have. What if we turn it into a giant missile?" Jake looked around his command center. The walls were cracked, the lights flickered, and half the control panels were broken. The New Horizon was barely holding together. "Helen, this station has 500 people on it." "I know. But if we ram it into their flagship at full speed, we might be able to crack their command ship in half. It could save Earth." Jake thought about his crew. They were good people who had families and dreams, but they were also soldiers who understood what duty meant. "All hands, this is Captain Morrison. Commander Ross has suggested that we use the New Horizon as a weapon against the enemy flagship. This would be a suicide mission. Anyone who wants to leave should report to the escape pods immediately." Jake waited for his crew to respond. He expected many of them to leave. Instead, Lieutenant Amy Carter stood up at her station. "Captain, I'm staying. This is my ship and my fight." Sergeant Tony Clark nodded from the weapons station. "I'm staying too, sir. These aliens picked the wrong planet to attack. One by one, every member of his crew chose to stay. 500 people decided that dying for Earth was better than living without it. "Jake," Admiral Stone said quietly, "are you sure about this?" "No, Admiral. I'm not sure about anything anymore. But I know we can't let them win without paying the biggest price possible." The remaining human ships formed up around the New Horizon. The damaged defense station would lead the final charge. Behind it, 46 warships prepared to follow their commander into the last battle. Lieutenant Danny Price's voice crackled over the radio from his damaged fighter. "Captain, my engines are barely working, but I can still fly. Mind if I tag along?" "Danny, you've done enough. Get to an evacuation ship." "Sir, my parents live in Chicago. My sister lives in New York. If this doesn't work, they're going to die anyway. I'd rather die trying to save them." Jake understood. This was not about military duty anymore. This was about protecting the people they loved. The human fleet began its final charge toward the HFY flagship. The massive alien ship was 3 times larger than the New Horizon and surrounded by hundreds of escort vessels. It looked like a metal mountain floating in space. "All ships," Jake announced. "This is probably the last time we'll talk to each other. I want you to know that serving with you has been the greatest honor of my life. Today we show the universe what humans are made of." The HFY fleet saw them coming. Thousands of energy weapons opened fire at once. Space filled with deadly light as the aliens tried to stop the charging humans. The first human ships began to explode. The transport New Hope, carrying civilians who had come back to fight, disappeared in a ball of fire. The cruiser Earth's Fury lost its engines and started spinning out of control. Commander Helen Ross's voice came over the radio one last time. "Jake, my ship is finished, but I can still steer. I'm going to ram the escort vessels, clear a path for you." Jake watched Helen's ship crash into 3 HFY cruisers. The explosion was so bright it hurt to look at. But it worked. The path to the flagship was open. The New Horizon pushed through the enemy fire. Half the station was on fire now, and the hull was breaking apart. But the engines still worked, and Jake could still steer. "Amy, how long until impact?" 30 seconds. "Captain." Jake looked at his crew one more time. They were scared, but they stood at their posts. They were ready to die for their planet and their people. 20 seconds. The HFY flagship grew larger and larger on the screen. Jake could see the aliens inside, working frantically at their controls. They finally understood what humans were willing to do. 10 seconds. Jake thought about Earth turning slowly in space. He thought about the blue oceans and white clouds. He thought about all the people down there who would never know his name. 5 seconds. The New Horizon smashed into the HFY flagship at full speed. The impact tore both ships apart. Metal and fire spread across space like a deadly flower. Jake's last thought was that the aliens would remember this day. They would remember that humans fight hardest when they have nothing left to lose. The explosion lit up the entire solar system. When the light faded, both the New Horizon and the HFY flagship were gone. But something amazing happened. The remaining HFY ships stopped fighting. Without their flagship and their commanders, the alien fleet began to fall apart. Some ships tried to continue the attack, but others started retreating. The perfect HFY formation became a confused mob of vessels running in different directions. The sacrifice of the New Horizon had broken the enemy's will to fight. Jake Morrison and his crew had won the impossible victory, but the cost had been terrible. Only 17 human ships survived the battle, and most of them were badly damaged. Earth was safe, but the price of victory would be remembered forever. The silence after the battle was strange and terrible. Where once there had been the sounds of weapons and explosions, now there was only the quiet hum of damaged engines and the soft beeping of emergency signals. Commander Lisa Bell found herself in command of what remained of Earth's defense fleet, 17 ships. That was all that survived from the original 387. She sat in the captain's chair of the damaged cruiser Last Hope and watched the enemy fleet fall apart. The HFY ships were scattered across space like leaves blown by a strong wind. Some were retreating at full speed toward the edge of the solar system. Others drifted powerless, their crews too shocked to function. A few were still trying to fight, but they had no coordination and no leadership. "Commander," Lieutenant Sam Hayes called from the communications station. "I'm getting surrender signals from some of the enemy ships. They want to give up." Lisa felt tired in her bones. The battle had lasted 18 hours, and she had not slept in 2 days. Accept their surrender. Have them move to the outer system and wait there. What about the ones that are still fighting? Lisa looked at her tactical screen. About 300 Kethvar ships were still shooting at anything that moved. They seemed confused and angry like wounded animals. Send them a message, tell them their flagship is destroyed and their fleet is broken. If they surrender now, we will not hunt them down. If they keep fighting, we will finish what we started. It was a bluff. The 17 human ships could barely move, let alone fight. But the Kethvar did not know that. Over the next hour, most of the remaining enemy ships stopped fighting and joined the surrender group. By the time the sun rose over Earth, only 17 Kethvar vessels were still trying to escape toward deep space. "Let them go," Lisa ordered. "Let them tell their people what happened here." Dr. Carl Davis called from his hidden research station on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. His voice was shaky with emotion. "Commander Bell, I've been monitoring alien communications during the battle. The surviving Kethvar are calling this the greatest military disaster in their history." "How so, Doctor?" "They came here with 9,900 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled by any species. They expected to destroy Earth in a few hours with minimal losses. Instead, they lost 9,883 ships to a species they considered primitive." Lisa looked out at the wreckage floating around Earth. Broken pieces of both human and alien ships drifted like metal snow. The orbital defense platforms were mostly destroyed. 3 cities on Earth had been damaged by falling debris. The cost had been enormous, but Earth was still there. The blue planet turned slowly in space, wounded but alive. "Doctor, start recording everything that happened here. Future generations need to know what these people did." "Already on it, Commander. I'm sending the complete battle records to hidden archives throughout the solar system. Even if something happens to Earth, the story will survive." 3 days later, the first alien visitors arrived. Not Kethvar, but ships from the Galactic Federation. They came slowly and carefully, broadcasting peace signals on every frequency. Ambassador Nancy Turner met them at the ruins of Orbital Station Alpha. Nancy was one of the few diplomats who had survived the battle. She had spent the last 3 days helping coordinate rescue operations. The Federation ambassador was a tall blue creature with 4 arms and large black eyes. His name was something humans could not pronounce, so they called him Ambassador Blue. He looked around at the wreckage, with obvious shock. "Ambassador Turner," Blue said in perfect English, "the Federation Council is having trouble believing the reports we received. Is it true that you defeated a Kethvar fleet of nearly 10,000 ships?" Nancy nodded. "It's true, but the cost was terrible. We lost over 300 ships and thousands of good people. But you won. A species that has been in space for only 200 years defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy. We didn't win because we were stronger, Ambassador. We won because we were willing to pay any price to protect our home." Ambassador Blue was quiet for a long moment. "The Federation Council wants to offer Earth full membership immediately, with full protection and military support. After what you accomplished here, every species in the galaxy wants you as an ally." Nancy felt a sad smile cross her face. "We would have been happy with friendship. We never wanted to be feared. I am afraid that fear and respect often go together. Ambassador Turner, the Kethvar survivors are telling their story throughout their empire. They speak of humans who fight like demons and refuse to surrender even when death is certain. Other species are listening to these stories with great interest." 6 months later, the rebuilding was well underway. New orbital stations rose from the ashes of the old ones. New ships rolled out of the expanded shipyards. Earth's population had learned something important about themselves during the battle. They were not alone in the universe, and they were not helpless. Young Billy Harper sat in his school classroom on Mars Colony, listening to his teacher tell the story of the Great Battle. Billy was 8 years old, born after the war ended. The battle seemed like ancient history to him. "Can anyone tell me why the Battle of Earth was so important?" the teacher asked. Billy raised his hand. "Because we showed the aliens that humans don't give up." "That's right, Billy, but there's more to it than that. The battle proved that courage and determination can overcome superior technology. It proved that fighting for something you believe in gives you strength that cannot be measured." After school, Billy walked home with his grandfather. The old man had been Lieutenant Amy Carter during the battle, serving on Captain Morrison's station. He was one of the few survivors from the New Horizon who had escaped before the final ramming attack. "Grandpa," Billy asked, "were you really scared during the battle?" The old man smiled. "Terrified, Billy. We were all scared. But being scared doesn't mean you stop fighting. It means you fight even harder for the things that matter. Like family, and home, and the idea that people should be free to live their own lives." Billy looked up at the night sky, where Earth shone like a blue star. Somewhere out there, new human ships were exploring the galaxy. They carried the flag of Earth and the story of the Great Battle. The HFY had wanted to destroy humanity because they thought humans were growing too fast and becoming too dangerous. They had been right about the dangerous part, but wrong about what that meant. Humans were dangerous not because they conquered others, but because they refused to be conquered. They were dangerous because they turned their weaknesses into strengths and their fear into courage. The 17 ships that escaped the battle spread the story throughout the HFY Empire. They told of a species that fought with impossible bravery and accepted no defeat. The story grew in the telling, becoming legend. Now, whenever alien species faced difficult battles or impossible odds, they remembered the humans of Earth. They remembered that sometimes the smallest force can win the greatest victory if it refuses to give up. Billy Harper would grow up in a galaxy that knew and respected the human name. He would never have to fight a battle like his grandfather did, because the Battle of Earth had already won the war that mattered most, the war for the right to exist free and unafraid among the stars.